had a meeting with the upholsterer yesterday, and we just kind of went over the car and where we're at with it, where I'm at with it, and what we can do to, if there's any obstacles to overcome. And he gave me a couple of good pointers, very good pointers actually, some of which are for clearances, stuff like that. If one of the was the so all of the window uh, garnish moldings roll have an edge on them right here. Have an edge on them that rolls back, about whatever, a quarter of an inch or so on the doors, and they trim out and close out that door, the posts on the doors. However, the rear quarter windows don't. And what I was thinking was that we could just run the vinyl down up to it, roll it over, and leave foam on the edge up that clearance. And he said no. So one of the things that I need to do is weld the flange on at the bottom of the channel. I'll come to this side. There's an overhang. Okay, when looking at the doors, the channels for the doors, see that overhang is flush with the this form, this edge, this flange that hangs over. So I'm gonna do a little bit on copying that. I'm gonna weld an edge on all the way around and finish those. Now these are all chopped and they're in surfacer. They've been in that way for months and months and months. And that's no big deal, right? Because it began with the end in mind. So I got those to do, and that's certainly no big deal. My door handles came in, and I've cut the holes in, not in a spectacular sense, but just in general, cut the holes so that they would fit through. I located them on the doors with a pattern. I took a pattern, flipped it, put it on this side, and so on and so forth, to keep symmetry in the effect. I put the melamine or hardboard, whatever you want to call it, up the side, and then I just right now hot melt glued on the transition piece, and it's hollow. It's hollow right now because it's just a cut off of that extra section here, and I'll have to glass that in. But that's what I'm working on. That door is open, I can see, but but it lines up well. It looks well. It flushes out well. This is flat. This is kind of coming in at a slight angle. That's going at a steeper angle. In all of the corners will be radiused, like I was talking about on an earlier video. This whole pillar, this is 2 inches and the door is not. And that's to allow for the garnish molding, the wind lace, to sandwich in between here and run that bead all the way around the channel. So we got to be able to fit that in there. And we're talking about sizes, and he can go down to a quarter of an inch, and typically on these cars he goes up to a half of an inch on the foam tube or cylinder or foam that goes in that garnish molding. And we'll play with that as we get there, but the key is to cover up that gap. I mean, I'm putting door seals in, and the wind lace was originally the door seal, but the gaps get a little bit stranger over here. Here, I'm coming out over to this side because of the trim, but the wind lace will fit, he said, will fit in here. So we've got that working out. So at this point now, I'm going to continue on. My plan is to get the bottoms of these doors, the channels, routed into the plywood that's at the bottom for the 4 panels, to finish the door cards, to finish the rear card, and then to move on to the headliner. So the project's going well. I asked them for a little more time. 4 weeks was aggressive. We're well into week 3 right now. I can't get it to them in a week at the pace that I'm going. And it's very hard to make the pace more aggressive when you've got a lot of work to do. And you're taking your ideas and your concepts and you're trying to apply them. It can be daunting, but I'm just going to keep plugging away. So we'll carry on. Well, not a whole heck of a lot to show today. Putting the door cards on. If you've never done this, it's not a daunting task. It's just the hard board. Trimming it to fit the door, you see it laying on the ground over there. Just cut up that what was sitting on the floor over here. Just cut up the remnants and started making the cards. And of course I have the rear one to make and this side to make. But what I do so I mark the holes on the edge of the door. I didn't put any of those in. I can put those in, but at this point I'm just getting the door cards made. Just mark all those on the edge, hold the door card up to it. In this case, this is routed out underneath here, except for here and up front. I don't want to see the edge of the panel in the front, and of course there's a tab on the back, so not in the rear. So I relieve out this area on those 3 spots on the door card, and it's like added about 3/4 of an inch, so it slips under there. And with the foam on it, that'll press the top of the door card against the door. So you can actually see on that one right there a little bit of that cut out, even a little on the front. So as it's leveled off and squared with the door. Of course, the vinyl will cover that. I mean, it's not a crisis to have a 1/16 of an inch hanging down. Anyway, so I'll do that all the way across there. On the rear, that fiberglass flag I left on there, those will be, it's an 1/8 inch thick, 4 layers. Probably 3/16 actually, maybe even 1/4. I don't know. It's thick. But I'll put push holes in there, and so that one will not. Oh, that does have channels in it too. I wonder if I can get a shot of that. I'll try. There, you can see, ran the router through and left the tabs on there. That's right. We just did that this morning. I went to a friend's house, a woodworker, and we did that so we can go up under there. Yeah, that's spectacular. And then I'll drill a couple in. This doesn't have any in it because I had to remake all those pieces during the construction of the car. I did make them in the bottoms of the doors, measured them off on the originals and spaced them. You can see right here where this bead comes up and terminates, I welded the whole new bottom section on. Anyway, so that's where I'm at, I guess. Not a whole heck of a lot. Would be really boring to watch me cut a piece of wood, drill the holes in the wood. What I was going to say is, so these are all 1/4 inch holes, and so I locate them, measure them, locate them, and I drill 3/16 holes all the way around. Get the door card up, line up 2 holes, find 2 holes, line them up, and drill them to 1/4 of an inch. Then put the pins in, put the retainers on, and that holds it so that as I'm drilling all of the rest of the holes, and you can add another retainer or whatever. I mean, I added a white plastic one there. You can add them as you go, and that keeps that panel in alignment as you're drilling them out. And so if you're a little off on your measurements, your drill bit will hit the metal hole in the metal door, and you can just rock it a little bit to make sure it holds the retainers. Works really well that way, just to go with the small hole, and then you can shine a light in there. That's what I was using the light for too, just shining it in there to find, you know, to peek through and see if I can see the edge of a hole and I need to go up or, you know, move the bit just a little bit. Kind of boring, but that's where I'm at. Well, so now we are panels all the way across. You'll see right there. I'll try to get in right in that area. What I did was on both sides, a little lower on this side, but I had that material. I could get that far, and so I fiberglass, basically sanded down the hardboard and glassed it in. And it's really strong now right there because I ground the fiberboard down so that I could lay it in and it would go on flat. But I need strength on these legs because they're just spindly. They are cut up about 3/8 of an inch above all the way back, so the carpeting will tuck up underneath them. But so now we're all the way back. I don't have these panels on both sides. And I think I mentioned it in an earlier video that see, that one's a little bit lower. And working with the upholsterer, that that he wants flanges around these rear windows. Like these all have, the doors have a 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch reveal around them. I guess I do remember now that I mentioned that. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the rears. Now the doors were like that. Why these rears are different, the windows did roll up and down, but they're just rolled back and there's nothing on there. So basically I'm starting with a 3/4 inch piece. I mean, I welded onto there and there and just flushed it out and stretched it until I got a perfect fit. And now I'm going to put it right at the surface of the top of the bead, just right at the surface, and perimeter weld it. Then I'll trim it off. I'll weld it down to this bottom trim, and then I'll trim it off and have to finish it. But that'll give the opportunity for the upholsterer, give him a little latitude in getting around those corners on the rear windows. There's a couple of these old cars, there's a couple of shreds of, I mean, that strip there is about 1.25 inches wide. 3/8 in will be that flange, and then the windlace will come out the other side. But that flange, like he said, that flange is actually going to hold that panel down, and the windlace, even though it'll be glued to the steel structure, that windlace in. So now, this was a pretty involved project getting these panels made, because when I made the car, I had no blueprint, right? And so I built these two wheel houses. I built them too far that way, and I knew putting the door on, how am I going to get a seal in here? So in both cases, they're just tacked on the outside. I have to pull the door off to do it, but I welded it about 3/4 of the way across the top, fully welded it down, finished off the inside, and when I get back onto the body, you know, I'll finish the outside. But that opportunity gets it closer to that inner door pocket, because that's what we're looking at behind the panel, is the radius of the inner door structure. And I did a 5/16 reveal all the way down, and that 5/16 shoots to the outside, so that the trim, or the weather stripping, which you can't, I got several pieces in here, but I got 1/2 inch tubular style weather stripping that closes out that gap, and that was one area that I hadn't, I was confused about how am I going to touch that. So now that's done. You can see the light through the bottoms of the doors you know, and you get in the right spot, you can, well, whatever. But the door sills need to be formed, and those two will have a step on them at the appropriate location, so that seal crush will work. It'll work perfectly. Anyway, I'm just kind of working on the rear trim now. That'll be done, and the plan is to get onto the headliner. So we're going to go with 3-piece headliner. The center band's going to be about the width of that screen, and run down, and we'll put 2 sections up. They got to be able to be self-supported with the push pins, so that's going to be critical stuff. So we'll get into that here shortly. Okay, one down, and yeah, I know I should have cleaned it. I'll clean that one. I just fought the burn on the way around, but I got a good bead, very good bead all the way around. I can build a radius off that bead. Welded it from the backside on the bottom, and now I'll scribe when I get the other one done. I'll scribe whatever, you know, is appropriate, probably 3/8 of an inch. You know, it'll at max be the width of this piece of trim, so it's all tied together. And then sand it and finish it and all that stuff all over again. So I always say to do things in pairs, but I got overly excited and sheared a piece of 3/4 18 gauge, and just wanted to see if I could stretch it around these corners, which I could, and I knew that I'd be able to, but you know, I don't know. Anyway, the point being is I got to go start from ground one on this one now. Okay, so what are we doing about this latch? You see the springs off here? That'll go back on. We are going to use this, and we are going to pull down, and we're going to do it through cabling. So here we have, I got brake and shift cables for the bicycle. In this case, we're using the larger diameter brake cables, which are 1/8 of an inch, or 1/16 of an inch, pardon me. The other ones, I don't know what they are. They're smaller. So what we've done, basically, kind of in a summary here, I should go back and say I just bought a kit. It's like an 87-piece kit that comes with the end ferrules. Where's my piece of cable here? That's the other one. I don't know, right there in front of me. So they got plastic, or whatever you want to call it, end ferrules. This piece is now cut to length. The ferrule has a step on it. That step actually fits into the notch right here. Snaps in. It sits on the shelf right there, and it will attach to the door handle using these 1/4 inch barrels. Perfect fit. And then I'm going to come in and come around. The corner. I'm not gonna be on this piece of the corner. I'll come in on the bottom. I just want to make sure that I get a 90. I don't want a super tight 90. So I just TIG welded up these, some 18 gauge wrapped around this. I stuck a piece of shaft in there, and then just formed around, drilled a hole in the top, so that the step and all on this, on the other end, will fit up into there. Okay. And the hole this is an 1/8 inch hole, so it allows me a little forgiveness in the sense that it stops the cable, but if I'm not dead center, because that was very hard to find. So this assembly is basically half of one of these cable supports, cut off the ears to flush the end, and started by, you know, making a pattern piece, folded this end up, and then line that up, put 2 tacks in, one there, and there's one right there. Got that in, then did half of the weld around this half tube, and then stuck in my piece of rod and then just hammer formed around it. Okay, and trimmed off the flag, the piece that was bent on this original form up. Just kept trimming it off and tigging it on until I had a barrel, and now I have support. 2 rib nuts, 10/24s. This is the wrong side, but they will go in behind here. Again, this is the incorrect side. This is for that door or that door. So I got 2 for this door and that door, you know, the suicide door thing. And the guy goes flipping nuts. Anyway, so looking on the outside surface, this will line up. This will be on the back side of this. Let me get my fingers in there. So these are all patterned off. They're all cut together. So this will shoot up and grab that latch. The cable will come down, turn, and hit there. I need to stay above this black line right here. That's the bottom of the door with the cable. It looks like exit's going to be right in this corner. So I'll be more along the lines of on this line here. So it'll ass up and hit the door. So when we get to the door then, of course, we needed another 1/4-inch barrel. So in this case, we got some of these 1/4-inch, I don't know, they come with like that, and and they were actually, the smallest I could get is 3/8, and then we dimensioned down, I needed 300 thousandths on here. These were 1/2 inch, that's right. So I just made a stud, a 10/24 stud, a stainless steel stud, screwed that on, chucked the stud and this guy in the lathe, zeroed off of that surface, moved in 300 thousandths and cut it. Came down with a 64th over 1/16 drill bit and drilled the ends. Got rid of these because now the assembly process is, jumps into, are we going to be able to get a Phillips screwdriver on the interior side of the door? No. So we got some cap screws. Shortest we could get is 3/8. Trim those back to 1/4 of an inch. And now they go in and they compress the cable on the inside. There'll be a washer on this screw on the inside. There'll be a washer on the inside of the cable. The remaining distance then winds up being the door. So they will go in. This isn't going to fit because the head of the socket head screw is bigger, but I mean there will be a washer backing it. Enough space for a washer there. Compression on the coil, on the cable, and it'll chase down into the tube. So a little bit of an involved deal, but I built these up and by just basically trimming all a template, an 18 gauge for all of them, and then just simply made, where we at here, that and that and that and that, rights and lefts. So riv nutted them, 10/24. I'll drill holes in each one of those panels in the doors. These panels were made, these latch panels, back in the day that I made them and attached them to the door. These were all made on the same pattern. They're all identical. So I have no problem building a template here, identifying the hole locations on each of the doors. If there's any variation, I mean, I'm certainly coming out with the cable. I can allow up to a 1/16 of an inch variation and still not even notice the difference. So these locates were all made. I don't know if I videoed that, but the locate for the door handle, they're just anchored right now with the factory location. But I identified that with a riv nut in the door by referencing several points, using a pattern, coming back and going on the factory, stamping, and using a caliper, dialed them all in to a center for the drill bit, doing a crosshair with a caliper on 2 holes. and then drilling them all with an 1/8 inch and then stepping up to the rib nut. So those are all well within, certainly within specification, both visually and aesthetically and you know, in real life. So now the time is to try to get that cable routed and see if we can't make a difference. And then I'll pull them out. I'll probably just test one, pull them out and get them coated. I think I'll probably just powder coat these so that they don't rust, right? Get that done. Now that I have that little oven, little countertop toaster oven, it is the only delay is waiting the half an hour for the cure on the powder coat. It goes so fast. It's faster than painting. So I'll wire brush those a little bit. I've got them sanded, but I'll wire brush them a little bit and get off and flying on it. So we'll get after it. Okay, got my test set up in. These are right now just basically hand tight that I cinched down with an Allen wrench. It would be nice on this because you have access right here, that this were a 3/8 head. It'd be nice if both of them were. I wish I could get that way, but the thing is, it doesn't need to be astronomically tight. It's pinching the cable inside of a tube. It works, but the Allen wrench I can get up here and tighten. Okay, so serviceability is also something that's key. And then, of course, I just mounted this in the one bolt. This will eventually be mounted to the panel and then be pulled in on that bolt. But you drilled the hole coming out the side. So now the door panel will fit on. I'm going to put a cable retainer on here. But I got a gentle radius then coming around here. So operates beautiful. Works as it's supposed to. It's not, you know, like brain science or anything, but I'm happy with it. I'm happy that the whole situation works and everything's starting to come together. You can see, you know, the spring will pull this on that, and this doesn't interrupt anything. So, because we're just taking cable slack out of it for the throw, and the actual distance is just that much. Even if the plunger bottoms, that's what the beauty of the spring. Do I get latched? Yeah. Well, what's going on here? You know, and again, going back to the spring thing, it does work because it softens the blow a little bit. This one says O-ring because I have an O-ring in it to help quiet them down. Still experimenting with that, but these just gives it enough play for doing that, and then the action's so fast that it takes it out of there. So again, if the springs wind up fatiguing and it doesn't work, I'll just go with a rod with some clearance. So, you know, these are 1/4 inch holes in here. So like a 3/16 rod would give enough clearance to hit that. I could go even a little smaller on the end just so it works. But anyway, the long and the short of it is, it works. And it's a reliable setup. It's a serviceable and reliable setup using aftermarket but OEM type design. Thanks. Well, not a whole bunch to report. It's been a little bit for me because I'm on another job, but it's not in the building. It's at the customer's house. So I'm kind of basically getting up early in the morning like I was doing when I was traveling to work every day, and getting a little bit done each day. But these are the rear quarter windows where I welded the flange on the outside, and so I got in and got those all dressed up and ground sanded. skim coated, then just blocked out. So those two are done, and then finished out the rear window, the back window, and just finished priming it. Right now you just got a coat of primer on that I shot on, get everything sealed, and then try to get some high build on and block it out. They're looking really good, but I did find a few pinholes, a few scars like that there, and that radius gets bigger. You know, when you get it into primer right in that area, see, that radius gets bigger right there. So I'll need to cut up a little bit on there before I put the high build on it. So, but by and large, they turned out real nice. Real nice. Just sat and worked on them and blocked them down and got them ready to go. So, if it's a little bit of work, they'll be done. They'll be done and ready for the new concept, new idea that I have for them. So, more on that in the future. Hey guys, so here we're looking at the garnish moldings, and you can see now that I've painted everything with kind of a cinnamon color, and then the corners I went in with a chestnut color. All of the square corners, okay, are painted with this chestnut. You can see that's what I put on last here as I'm finishing them out. These turned out real good. There was a lot of effort into them. They were in surfacer for quite some time. This is the wrap. It's a teak wood wrap, and it matches. The purpose of the chest wood color is to match those corners. Okay, so I've got that one on the garbage can and these three left to paint, and we'll get after that pretty quickly. Now, going back to the car, I'm going to have wood in this car, and there will be a band across there that kind of wraps around the console and sticks out a little bit, and I'll more than likely wrap that. There will also be two pieces up here, there, and I'll wrap those as well. In the center of the Chrysler is the VIN tag. It's a decorative VIN tag, and I have that piece that I'll be putting in there as well. So those will all be in this teak wood wrap. I plan on covering everything in some sort of epoxy clear. Whether I do any wood accents on the console or other places of the car, I don't know. It'll be Spartan. In the cutouts in the door panels, those will be body colored to match the wraparound on the dash. So down there, I'll probably do a vinyl cover, maybe paint them, but the dash, it will flow through into those pieces, inserts on the door panels, and it'll be a solid surface where the door, the extent of the panels will be vinyl covered along with the panels. Talking about the steering wheel, that was a China, pardon me, but it was an Amazon purchase, and it was for mock-up. It's all scratched up in that. I originally wanted to go with kind of a reddish color, a red color in wood, but it's not going to go with the car long term. I'm really leaning toward a very dark, kind of a black base, metallic forest green, tri-coat type of a thing on the car, and I want a rich look with that. So I'm going to fabricate a steering wheel that's going to match up with the squarish column from the Dodge Dakota, and tie in a little better. So I have on here steering wheel controls for cruise and that. I'll probably put controls on the left side as well in the steering wheel, and I'll integrate them. But I'm not going to use the ears that I have there. There's too much depth there, and it doesn't look the way I want it to look in the end. So I'll laser cut out a steering wheel, stamp it, and then have it covered in wood. I'm thinking about brass rivets, all that kind of a thing for this, so that it ties in and looks like it's supposed to in the theme that I'm going with here. So That's the plan for that. Unfortunately, when I recorded this video, I failed on the sound. I didn't have, my mic was dead, so no big deal. Anyway, so that's how this thing winds up wrapping up, and here I'm kind of reiterating on the corners. There'll be 4 pieces on each one of these, and some of the curved ones, like the rear glass and the rear quarter windows, will be 2 and 1 piece, and I've got to come up with a method on that back window to wrap that, because that guy is going to have to be a single piece. But thanks for watching.
All right, last two pieces. So as mentioned, hopefully mentioned earlier in the last piece, the dark chestnut color is matching the vinyl wrap. So those are, this section will get wrapped, whether it's first or last, I don't know, and cut as an individual piece. And then this, because they're radiuses, will get wrapped all of the way around in the wood. Wallpaper. So these pieces are the ones that, I didn't fabricate them. They were the original ones, but I had to change the tight radius, had to add a section in for a tight radius here, so that I could follow the profile of the window more appropriately. I believe, if I remember correctly, that inside radius was a 90, like the bottom. Now this window is radiused all of the way around, as are the doors. And I didn't like how, pardon me, these windows rolled up and down also, originally. And so they were formed and shaped in a manner that was consistent with the doors, where the window rolled up and just kind of fell behind this section here, right? And it was a sharp edge, and then it sliced down, radius down, and had that back radius on it. So the door frame went up to a 90, or the garnish molding rather went up to a 90 in that section, and I radiused it to follow the door because I'm doing a fixed pane, and it just plain looks better. Now these, excuse me, these did not have a flange on them, and I found that quite interesting, because how in the world would the interior panel go into there? And I just didn't, I didn't have obviously any interior, and certainly no interior panels. Those has long been degraded away. I had some of the wood framing in that, but I could look at pictures and stuff online and dig around on it. But rather than that, what I I wanted was not to extend beyond the overhang on these, and this one overhangs about 1/2 of an inch, and this overhangs 3/8 of an inch. So I put a 3/8 inch perimeter around it, tied it in, TIG welded it continuously, grounded, cleaned up the surface, primer filler, whatever you want to call it, surfacer, wet sanded, and had to build up the bottom just a little bit, just a layer of fiberglass on the bottom to get about between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch build on this bottom surface, so that I could pinch the 5/8 wide gasket and allow for a panel to go behind, a covered panel to go behind the flange. So it wound up working out really well, and these are done. The rear window molding is also done. That's the one that I made from scratch, and that's radiused all the way around. And as far as wrapping that, I'm thinking I'm just going to do one continuous piece. By cutting it flat, cutting a small circle on the inside, and hopefully getting her to go on. Wish me luck, okay, on that one. We'll dig into that a little bit later. These, of course, are going to be much simpler because they're 4 pieces, all of the window moldings. So everything right now is painted out. All of the corners where there will be joins are painted a color matching. As you've seen and I've explained, and therefore I should be able to get into them, hide the seams if there's any, even the slightest amount of pullback. Over time, it'll be the same color as the wood. So now I just got to wait till this paint fully cures and begin wrapping.
Okay, got one out of the oven. Got all of them out of the oven. I spent a bunch of time looking online for curing enamel. This is just Rust-Oleum paint. I just want a good surface underneath that I can clean, and with it glossy, I can check my work, my body work, whatever, my straightness of the metal and stuff like that. So I just took the powder coat of it and set him to 170, 165, 170, and threw these in for a half an hour, and then pulled them. All the doors I threw in for another half an hour. They'd been curing for a day, and I think these rear ones I'm going to throw in for. So these I finished today and painted today. And so I'm probably going to throw those in tomorrow and just cycle them again, because I just want that enamel fully cured, all the VOCs out. And you can tell when you put them in, because it's a traditional oven style, but it's got a 2-inch vent off the top. The only thing is this has a recirculating fan in it. I mean, conventional ovens do too, but I put a recirculating fan to pull from the bottom where the burner is and dump into the top, so I get as even a heat as I possibly can. It doesn't turn on until 100 degrees, but the lowest setting on this particular oven is 170. So yeah, I ran it up to 195, and then but I think based on this goes through and through. It's a probe thermometer, but I got into that 175 range. Based on that, there's nothing calibrated. I can set this to 175, and that can wind up being about 160, even though that uses a probe also. But which one's right and which one's wrong, I don't know. I just don't want to bubble paint. There's the oven probe, and there's the one I stuck in there. So long and the short of it is, I don't use the broiler for much unless I want a rapid heat. Even though the broiler cycles with that to get to the, as high as you want to get, but I just use the bottom element, the regular oven element, and then it pulls right across that element and dumps it in the top. So heat rises anyway, but I just want to keep it recirculating in the oven. Anyway, so that's what I did. Bake those, and I purchased this wrap. I may have showed it in a video in the past, but it's teak wood. That's what I want to cover the interior with, teak wood. And I wrapped the rear. Now there's a parting line here and exactly the same spot here, because no matter what, there'd be a parting line. Placing it on there, I should tell you that I did try to just cut a piece with a narrow strip in the middle and tried to pull it around. I don't have enough skill to do that, so he wound up being right here. That was the result of that. I just could not get it around without going white, without stretching it so much that I'd pull through. So I opted for the 2 boards. Interestingly, the grain you know, flows around like that, you know, kind of flows around the corners. But I think it looks cool as heck, you know, it looks like a bent board. Anyway, when I finish all of these, then I'm going to build up urethane. I was looking into epoxy, and you can get UV resistant epoxy, but it still doesn't have a long life under UV rays. And this is in the interior, so nothing will ever get specifically direct sunlight except for those that are in the direct sunlight, and they are vertical panels on the inside. So that's why I was considering epoxy. But I think it would look nicer if I urethane. If it got a little amber on it, fine. Polyurethane is what I meant. And so I'll probably get 3 coats on there, or however many on there if I spray them. But I want to get it heavy so that I can take 600 and work up to 1200 and get them to just shine. I don't know, maybe it'll be 5 or 6 coats. I have no idea. But anyway, at the end of the story is I want to get these to look like stained and varnished wood. So I'm going to start on this one. These are going to be considerably easier. The nice thing about this is I learned, you know, how I can get a seam that looks like a butt seam, or a, you know, where one piece of wood starts and one ends. So the grain will run correct as per, you know, a piece made out of wood. So I don't have a lot of experience doing wraps. Very limited, you know, hither and dither, tried a mirror, failed, you know, tried to do some headlights in a tinted wrap and failed. You know, well, maybe I succeeded in that, but results are difficult. So I'm just taking this extremely slow, and I chose the hardest piece first because if it's going to fail, screw it, you know, go to plan B, which currently I don't have on this. I want them wood grained. So anyway, I'm going to move on to this. That might go well, and we'll show you what's going on. The only thing on these is they have this double bead right here, and I have a tool to, you know, to get in there, a soft tool to get in there and do that. You know, you just got to keep something soft running through there. And it could even be a popsicle stick, but I have, you know, what I've been using on this is a Bondo knife wrapped in a rag. You can get those knives with those pads glued on them, which is basically a Bondo knife with a pad glued on it, a little heavier one. I've got one, I just can't find it. But this is too narrow, and so I might put a little bit of felt, you know, on here, and then, you know, work it down. That's kind of what I was thinking. Anyway, let's get after it.